Superman and Doomsday. In 1992, DC Comics made a choice that stunned fans everywhere. They killed Superman. For decades, he stood as the invincible symbol of hope, but in Superman number 75, his story took a devastating turn. His enemy was Doomsday, a brutal creature born from Krypton's distant past. Doomsday wasn't just another villain. He was engineered through relentless genetic experimentation, dying and resurrecting over and over to become the ultimate destroyer. When unleashed, he tore through everything in his path. Doomsday overcame many of Earth's heroes first, isolating Superman as the last line of defense. Their battle started in the countryside and crashed through small towns before reaching Metropolis, leaving destruction everywhere. With every smaller panel, Superman's strength waned until the final splash page captured their mutual annihilation. Superman's costume was torn, his body battered, and Doomsday's blows shattered city blocks. The fight ended with both landing fatal strikes. Superman's punch cracked Doomsday's skull, but not before a jagged bone pierced Superman's chest. Both fell, and Metropolis went silent. The storytelling choices in Superman number 75, especially the gradual reduction of panels leading to dramatic splash pages, amplified the sense of tragedy and finality. The world watched as a superhero's end became headline news. Rorschach. Some losses in comics are not the result of chance or public opinion, but of a character's own refusal to compromise. Rorschach, the uncompromising vigilante at the heart of Watchmen, saw the world in stark absolutes, good and evil, right and wrong, with nothing in between. There is good and there is evil, and evil must be punished. This was more than a motto. It was the foundation of his every action, isolating him even among other costumed adventurers who often found themselves forced to make uneasy choices. By the final issue, the world teetered on nuclear war, and Rorschach's refusal to lie threatened a fragile peace. Ozymandias had orchestrated mass murder, killing millions to unite humanity and prevent global destruction. For Rorschach, the scale of the crime was irrelevant. Evil could never be justified, no matter the outcome. He insisted on exposing the truth, even if it meant shattering the only hope for peace and risking annihilation. Dr. Manhattan, understanding the consequences, presented Rorschach with a choice: remain silent or die. Rorschach chose death. He removed his mask, looked Dr. Manhattan in the eye, and demanded, "Do it." His death held no glory, just finality. Alan Moore used this moment to challenge the very idea of absolute morality. Rorschach's unwavering code preserved his integrity, but ensured his destruction, showing that in a world full of gray, rigid principles can become a fatal weakness. The Corinthian. The Corinthian was a nightmare given form by Dream of the Endless, created not to harm, but to act as a black mirror for humanity's darkest impulses. Dream intended him as a warning, a reflection of the fears and evils people refused to face. But in the Sandman number 10, it became clear that the Corinthian had gone beyond his intended role. Instead of inspiring fear in the safety of dreams, Nettie escaped into the waking world and became a serial killer. His horror was not just in his appearance, teeth where eyes should be, but in his method. He consumed eyes as trophies, each one a grotesque souvenir of fear. By devouring his victim's sight, he absorbed their memories and glimpsed futures they would never see, turning perception itself into a weapon. For Dream, this was a profound violation. Nightmares were meant to challenge and confront, not to inflict suffering outside the dreaming. The Corinthian's actions threatened the very balance of both realms, forcing Dream to reclaim control. Rather than simply killing the Corinthian, Dream chose to unmake him, reducing him to a skull and a pile of sand, erasing his existence entirely. This act was more than punishment. It was a demonstration of the endless's power to enforce cosmic order and restore the purpose of nightmares. Neil Gaiman's narrative made clear that even the most terrifying creations are bound by the intent of their maker, and when they stray too far, their erasure can be absolute. The unmaking of the Corinthian stand, as a reminder that sometimes the most unsettling ends come not from violence or vengeance, but from the quiet, final assertion of control. The Joker. The Joker's death and injustice. Gods Among Us Year 1 is one of DC Comics' most unsettling moments, not because of the act itself, but because of what it triggers. His final plan was psychological warfare at its most devastating. Using a fear toxin, the Joker manipulated Superman into believing Lois Lane, his pregnant wife, was Doomsday. In a desperate attempt to save the world, Superman killed Lois with his own hands. Her death, in turn, set off a nuclear device hidden in Metropolis, killing millions. The Joker's scheme was was more than chaos for its own sake. It was a calculated effort to destroy Superman's sense of self. Standing amid the ruins, Superman confronted the Joker, who only mocked him, laughing at the hero's deepest failure. Grief-blinded, Superman snapped his moral code and drove his fist through the Joker's chest, killing him instantly. The panel captured the moment with stark clarity, the Joker's body lifeless, his smile unbroken even in death. This single punch transformed Superman from a symbol of hope into a dictator, setting a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and overwhelming grief. Joker's death was not the end, but the beginning of a new order, one where the boundaries between hero and tyrant blur, and the consequences of loss reshape entire worlds. Robin. Jason Todd's journey as Robin was never smooth. As the second to take up the mantle after Dick Gray's son, Jason always seemed to be at odds with the expectations placed upon him. His anger and impulsiveness divided both the Bat, family, and readers, making him a controversial figure. By 1988, DC Comics faced a pivotal question: should Jason continue as Robin, or should his story end in tragedy? This time, the decision would not be left to writers alone. Instead, DC handed the choice to fans, launching a 36-hour phone poll that let readers determine Jason's fate, a first in comic book history. The results were razor-thin. Out of 10,614 votes, just 72 separated life from death, with 5,343 people voting for Jason's demise and 5,271 hoping to spare him. The narrow margin meant almost any shift could have changed his fate. In Batman number 428, the consequences played out with brutal finality. Lured into a trap by the Joker, Jason was savagely beaten with a crowbar, the violence so intense it lingered. The off-panel carnage left imagination to fill in the horror. The Joker then left him in a warehouse rigged to explode, sealing Jason's fate in a single, devastating moment. For Batman, finding Jason's broken body marked one of his darkest failures. The glass-encased Robin suit in the Batcave, inscribed with "A Good Soldier," became a daily reminder of loss and regret. Agent 355. Agent 355's story and why The Last Man is marked by discipline and unwavering dedication. As a member of the Culper Ring, she became Yorick Brown's protector after a mysterious plague wiped out every other male mammal on Earth. Her expertise and resolve kept Yorick alive through years of chaos, and her presence anchored his journey across a collapsing world. Over time, the lines between duty and personal connection blurred, and the bond between them deepened through shared danger and loss. In issue number 58, just as Agent 355 finally let herself be vulnerable and confessed her feelings to Yorick, a sniper's bullet ended her life in an instant. One moment she stood alive, the next she collapsed, lifeless. There was no warning, no dramatic buildup, and no chance for goodbyes. Brian K. Vaughan's choice to deliver her death with such abruptness stripped away any sense of closure, mirroring the series' commitment to showing that not every story ends with heroism or meaning. The silence that followed left Yorick and readers reeling with hope and connection snatched away at its most fragile moment. Agent 355's fate highlights how even the strongest can be undone by a single, senseless act. Bart Allen. Bart Allen's tenure as the Flash was brief and marked by uncertainty. After Wally West vanished during Infinite Crisis, Bart reluctantly accepted the role of the Scarlet Speedster, inheriting not just the legacy of his grandfather Barry Allen, but also the immense expectations that came with it. Known for his impulsive personality and rapid aging, due to his unique connection to the Speed Force, Bart struggled to find his footing as a hero in a world that still mourned his predecessors. As Bart's story progressed, his bond with the Speed Force began to falter. The very energy that had always set him apart grew unstable, leaving him slower and more vulnerable with each encounter. By the time of The Flash, the fastest man alive number 13, Bart's powers had nearly vanished, reducing him to a target for his enemies. The Rogues, usually bound by a code against killing, abandoned their principles in this moment. Led by inertia, and joined by Captain Cold, Heatwave, and Weather Wizard, they attacked Bart relentlessly. With no super speed to protect himself, Bart was overpowered and killed. The brutality of the assault, underscored by how far the Rogues had strayed from their usual restraint. Bart's death was not just a narrative twist, it was a direct result of editorial decisions and declining sales. DC canceled his series to restore Wally West and eventually Barry Allen, demonstrating how market forces and corporate strategy can override even the most heroic efforts. The fallout from Bart's end left a void in the Flash legacy, serving as a stark example of how sometimes the rules of the world outside the comic can be just as ruthless as those within. Black Canary. In the Injustice universe, Superman's transformation from hero to authoritarian ruler reaches its most chilling point with the death of Black Canary, after the Joker tricks him into killing Lois Lane and their unborn child, as well as destroying Metropolis. Superman's grief and rage push him past the limits of his old moral code. He kills the Joker, an act that cements his turn to tyranny and sets the tone for the world he intends to control. With his new regime, Superman no longer tolerates dissent, even from those who once fought beside him. As resistance formed, old alliances eroded. Black Canary, a longtime ally, stands against Superman's vision of peace through absolute control. She refuses to compromise her ideals, becoming a symbol of resistance. Superman, now viewing former friends as obstacles, responds with calculated brutality. He shoots her. The act is swift and final, erasing any lingering connection to his past as a protector. Black Canary's death is not just a tactical move against the resistance. It is a complete betrayal of everything Superman once represented. Moments like this in comics show that even the most powerful heroes can fall, and that the consequences of breaking a moral code can reshape entire worlds. Supergirl. Supergirl's death in Crisis on Infinite Earths #7 stands as one of the most pivotal moments in comic book history. As Superman's cousin, Kara Zor-El shared his Krypton Ian powers, but always worked to establish her own identity beyond his shadow. During the multiversal war against the Anti-Monitor, she found her purpose in a battle that demanded the highest price from its heroes. The Anti-Monitor's solar collector weapon threatened to erase all existence. To destroy it, someone had to attack from within, a mission that meant certain death. With Superman still weakened from earlier fights, Kara made the decision herself. She fought on until her last breath, pushing through the weapon's devastating energy as it tore through her Krypton Ian physiology. Her actions saved Superman and the multiverse, but left her lifeless on the battlefield. In the aftermath, Superman, battered and grieving, held Kara's body. The image became one of comics' most iconic covers, capturing the emotional weight of her sacrifice. Supergirl's death was not only a personal loss for Superman, but a turning point for the DC universe. Her absence lasted for years, one of the few major early casualties that remained permanent until later retcons. The event showed that even the most powerful heroes could fall, and that some victories came at a cost that reshaped the very fabric of continuity. Chip. Chip stood out among the Green Lantern Corps, a chipmunk-like alien wielding a power ring that let him create anything he could imagine. As the Green Lantern of Sector 1014, he protected his home planet HFN and the wider universe, and he retained memories from before Crisis on Infinite Earths, a rare trait among Green Lanterns. Despite his small size, Chip faced galactic threats and proved himself time and again as a true cosmic hero. Yet his end arrived in the most unexpected way. In Green Lantern, Mosaic #2, Chip Team Patrol on Earth turned fatal when he stepped into the path of a yellow delivery truck. His ring's weakness to yellow rendered every construct ineffective, making a simple truck fatally ironic. With barely a moment to react, Chip was struck and killed instantly. The issue's cover captured the moment with a stark image. Chip caught in the truck's headlights, the word roadkill underneath. The scene was both shocking and darkly humorous, stripping away any sense of heroism or epic sacrifice. Unlike many comic book deaths, Chip's has remained largely permanent. His abrupt, mundane end underscored how even the most powerful can fall to chance. Barry Allen. Barry Allen, the Silver Age Flash, faced his greatest test during Crisis on Infinite Earths #8. The Anti-Monitor's antimatter cannon threatened to erase all positive materiality, and only a speedster could hope to stop it. Barry understood that dismantling the weapon meant running faster than ever before, creating a vortex powerful enough to disrupt the cannon's energy. The calculations were simple but brutal. At that speed, his body would not survive. He would disintegrate, reduced to shimmering particles of energy, but it was the only way to save the multiverse. Before his final run, Barry shared brief, emotional moments with his wife Iris and his nephew Wally West. He could not fully explain why he had to leave, but the weight of his decision was clear. As Barry tore into the antimatter cannon's mechanism, his form dissolved panel by panel until only his empty costume remained, a symbol of ultimate sacrifice. The Speed Force absorbed Barry, and he was gone. Barry Allen's death was more than a heroic end. It lasted for over 2 decades, profoundly shaping the Flash legacy and the DC universe itself. Midnighter and the Jackhammer. Midnighter operates differently from most heroes. As the combat strategist of the Authority, a team that rejects traditional limits, he's engineered to predict millions of outcomes and heal from nearly any wound. His methods often blur the line between justice and brutality, but in the Authority number 14, he crossed into territory the genre rarely touches. The conflict began when the Commander, a Captain America analog, attacked Apollo, Midnighter's partner, in a way that strongly implied sexual assault. Midnighter's response was calculated and severe. He confronted the Commander not just to defeat him, but to exact humiliation and retribution. The use of a jackhammer as a weapon carried deeply unsettling implications, shifting the act from violence to something far more disturbing. The depiction was not explicit, but the subtext was clear enough to shock both readers and critics. The backlash was immediate and widespread throughout the comics industry. The Authority was known for mature themes and unflinching violence, but this scene ignited debate about how far mainstream comics should go in depicting sexual violence. Critics questioned whether the moment served a narrative purpose or simply existed to provoke. The controversy forced creators and publishers to reconsider the ethical boundaries of storytelling, especially when so-called heroes become perpetrators of acts once considered unthinkable. Ted Kord, the second Blue Beetle, stood out for his sharp intellect, inventive gadgets, and cheerful wit. His humor and partnership with Booster Gold brought a rare levity to the Justice League, making him one of its most beloved and relatable members. Ted's approach to heroism relied on resourcefulness rather than superpowers, and his upbeat personality set him apart in a universe often defined by darker tones. That lightness made his fate and countdown to Infinite Crisis all the more devastating. While investigating a hidden conspiracy, Ted traced the plot back to Maxwell Lord, a longtime ally and financier of the Justice League International. Lord's transformation from trusted friend to manipulative villain was shocking, his newfound mind control powers fueling a plan to dominate or destroy the metahuman community. When Ted refused to join Lord's crusade, the betrayal was swift and merciless. Without warning or struggle, Lord executed Ted with a single gunshot to the head, a cold, calculated act that left no room for heroics or redemption. Ted Kord's death was not a sacrifice in battle or a last stand against evil, but a brutal reminder of how trust can be shattered from within. The loss of such a lighthearted figure at the hands of a former friend marked a turning point for DC Comics. It signaled a deliberate shift from Silver Age optimism to a darker, more morally complex era, directly fueling the tone of Infinite Crisis. In the aftermath, the sense of safety within the superhero community fractured, paving the way for tragedies that would strike even closer to home. Sue Dibney was not a superhero, but the beloved wife of Ralph Dibney, the elongated man. Her presence anchored the Justice League, reminding heroes of the ordinary lives they fought to protect. That sense of normalcy shattered in Identity Crisis #1, when Ralph found Sue's body at home, her corpse gruesomely burned from the inside out. Even Superman was shaken by the sight, the horror of the crime scene cutting through his years of experience with tragedy. The initial investigation suggested a random act of violence, but the truth exposed deeper wounds. Years before, Sue had been sexually assaulted by Dr. Light on the Justice League satellite. This revelation not only redefined Dr. Light as a predator, but also forced the League's darkest secret into the open. In an attempt to protect Sue and safeguard their own identities, members like Zatanna erased Dr. Light's memories and altered his personality. This act of mind-wiping, meant to shield the innocent, sparked fierce debate about hero accountability and the limits of justice. Sue's murder and the secrets it unearthed fractured trust within the Justice League. The storyline drew heavy criticism for using sexual violence as a plot device and for the abrupt, unsatisfying resolution involving Jean Loring as the killer. Yet, the impact was undeniable. Identity Crisis forced both characters and readers to confront the hidden costs of heroism and the dangers that can emerge when the line between protector and perpetrator blurs. Pantha was a longtime member of the Teen Titans, known for her fierce independence and loyalty to her team. During the chaos of Infinite Crisis, she became one of the event's most shocking casualties. Superboy Prime, a Krypton Ian from a parallel Earth whose world was destroyed, entered the battle already warped by isolation and a sense of superiority over the heroes he once admired. His resentment and emotional instability, combined with the raw power granted by Earth's yellow sun, made him unpredictable and deadly. In Infinite Infinite Crisis number 4. As the Titans confronted Superboy Prime, Pantha tried to subdue him. Without warning, Prime lashed out. His punch connected with such force that it instantly decapitated Pantha, her head sent flying before anyone could react. The act was not calculated. It was a sudden, casual eruption of violence. The other Titans froze in horror as they realized the scale of the threat they faced. Prime, detached from the consequences, shrugged, "I didn't mean it," revealing not just his lack of empathy but his fundamental disconnect from the reality of the lives around him. This moment underscored the terrifying potential of unchecked power. When strength is paired with emotional immaturity, tragedy can happen in an instant. The shock of Pantha's death would linger, a reminder that sometimes the greatest danger comes from those with no understanding of the limits they've crossed. So which death left the biggest mark on you? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell for more Explainerverse videos just like this one.